The Metro on 1019 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham. It's Friday, which means it's the last day for Colin Jackson, reporter with the Michigan Public Radio Network. Colin, I am so sad.
Tia, I'm fighting back tears right now. This has been fantastic, and I'm so happy I got to be there.
I'm so happy you got to be here as well. I know that I have a lifelong friend now. I mean, I always knew that, but now truly have a friend, and I just want to say thank you for being here with us this week, and what we have coming up this week, or today, I guess.
Thank you for having me. And today on the program, Michigan's Redistricting Commission had to reconstruct some of its state, Senate, and House maps after a recent court ruling. We'll talk about how those maps changed and what it meant for voters in the primary election with one of the leaders of the commission.
Plus, the Detroit documenters stopped by to chat about two meetings this week, Detroit Police Board of Commissioners and Detroit School Board meeting. We'll learn more about what the public had to say to elected officials with the goal to hold them accountable. But first up, it's almost the weekend and the Belle Isle Aquarium has a lot to celebrate. America's oldest aquarium is celebrating a major milestone, its 120th anniversary. The space opened in 1904 and was then the third largest in the world. The celebration is all the much sweeter because the aquarium was almost completely lost. In 2005, the site was shuttered by the city because of budget constraints, but it reopened in 2012 and since then has been supported by the Belle Isle Conservancy. To talk now about the Belle Isle Aquarium, Sunday's celebration, and all the work that's going on at the Belle Isle Conservancy, we have Dr. Megan Elliot. She is the CEO of the Belle Isle Conservancy. Megan, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you so much for having me, Tia.
Of course. And once again, it's the 120th anniversary of the Belle Isle Aquarium. Tell us a little bit about the history there, if you can.
Sure. Well, Detroit does everything better, and aquariums are no exception to that rule. So we are so excited that we have right in our backyard the oldest operating aquarium in the country. Wow. And it was recently ranked the most beautiful. So for the listeners that have ever been in there, you see those gorgeous jade opaline tiles all over the ceiling that evoke that feeling of being underwater with the fish. It's a really beautiful space. It's a historic space. It was designed by Albert Kahn in 1901. And you were mentioning when it was first opened in 1904. What I learned recently is when it opened, there was a line from the aquarium steps all the way across Belle Isle, across the MacArthur Bridge, and that hit Jefferson Avenue, which, if you can imagine that.
No, because I think about that walk often. I did a whole walk around Belle Isle, and I thought I was going to die. So I know for a fact that had to be one of the most premier opening events in the city of Detroit in 1904. I could only imagine the people who were lined up to see. So, tell us about the event that's going to celebrate this 120th anniversary.
Absolutely. So on Sunday, we are going to have an event, rain or shine, very important, rain or shine. We have a backup plan for rain. From 11 to 4, it's all free, and we're going to have a bounce house, a DJ, some free food. We'll have our Faygo Pop, of course. We're going to have crafts, story time. We have a local artist named Olivia Maldonado who created a coloring book for kids that's all about the aquarium, which is super fun. And then we'll have a special set of activities in our outdoor classroom, which is right on the canal. A lot of folks don't know that the canal system runs right behind the aquarium and the conservatory, and it's a really beautiful space, but it's also a space to learn about nature and our ecosystem and how all these things work together. So we love taking kids out there and doing water samples, looking at the fish, and learning right from that system that runs right behind the aquarium and how that relates to the fish that they see inside the building. So we'll have some activities there, too, that are fun and educational.
Which is so cool. Every time I go to the island, I always run into a new creature or some new insect or more butterflies than I've seen in a long time, or bees or whatever it may be. So definitely you can see that the natural space of Belle Isle is being preserved there by the Conservancy. So for those who may have never been to the aquarium, you talked a little bit about what it looked like. But if you could just fill people in a little bit more visually what it's like to be there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful space. So you walk in. I mentioned the tile work and the ceiling is really being the stunner when you first step in the doors. But we have a number of tanks, I believe 44 tanks total, and a bunch of fish and creatures that we also have kept in our basement that we kind of rotate in and out. So we get to change it up, tell the story of all those fish. We have freshwater and saltwater fish. And we also have an exhibit actually that highlights the plastic waste on the island. We do, as the Conservancy, a ton of cleanup work. So we have an amazing body of volunteers that help us to keep the aquarium open and free to the public, and they also help do cleanups. So we talk a lot about that and that stewardship of the space and what we can all do to keep it such a beautiful treasure for everyone. So those are just some of the things that you can see when you come inside.
Which is amazing. Once again, it's been around for so long, 120 years. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Dr. Megan Elliot of the Belle Isle Conservancy, and we're discussing Belle Isle's Aquarium. It's 120th anniversary, which will be celebrated this Sunday in partnership with the city of Detroit. And once again, for those who don't know, the Conservancy is meant to protect and restore Belle Isle, as we've been chatting about that right now. Talk about all that includes with the project of just keeping it up.
Yeah, so there are so many partners on the island. You just mentioned the City of Detroit. The Arts, Culture, and Entrepreneurship unit of the City of Detroit is who's helping us put on this birthday party, so we're so thankful to them. But there are so many different stewards on the island. So the Belle Isle Conservancy is really the nonprofit steward that helps protect the nature, the people, and the places on the island. And what that really looks like in practice is building a lot of coalitions, because everyone loves Belle Isle. Everyone has an amazing memory there. And how do we kind of garner that as in terms of people who are giving of their time and their energy or their resources to really make things happen on the island? So what we do is a lot of community engagement to understand what Detroiters' priorities are for what they want to see happen, whether it's the reopening of a building or a new project near the beach. There's so many different interesting spaces and ways to use Belle Isle. And then we turn around and say, okay, how do we get this done? So I'm excited to drive some of that energy and to work with all of the groups that are excited about Belle Isle and make those things happen.
Yeah. So Megan, excuse me, you're new to the position, relatively new to the position.
That's
You're
right.
the new CEO. So if you can, just give us a little bit about your goals and what you see going forward. What are some of the things that you want to see, especially when we talk about engaging with the community and talking with the community and just getting feedback? What are some things that you want to do?
Yeah, so that's a perfect starting point. So Belle Isle is a public space. It belongs to everyone, and I am a public servant at heart. I come off of 10 years of working for the city of Detroit, and so I'm turning right back around to listen to folks. So you'll be hearing from us later this fall with more opportunities for engagement. I'm going to try and come out to a lot of existing meetings, meet people where they are, and just hear about what they want to see happen on the island. So that's my first goal, is just being a good listener and understanding what people want to see. And then, I think there's a lot of exciting projects. So a lot of folks don't know there's 50 different buildings on the island. A lot of those are incredible cultural institutions.
Did not know 50
Exactly.
buildings were on the island. Wow.
So MDNR has done, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources has done an incredible job of making a ton of investments in those buildings. So if you ever go out to the Flynn Pavilion, if you ever got married there or taught your children how to ice skate on Lake Tacoma in front of that space, they just made some really incredible investments there. And later on in the winter, we'll see the conservatory reopen. So that's super exciting. Look out for more information on the formal opening date. But, we always see folks every day coming out saying, when's it going to reopen? And that's such an iconic space for Detroit. So.
Yeah, you had mentioned there are 50 buildings there, and you said something earlier when you were talking about the aquarium itself and how it was kind of this Albert Kahn designed building. And I think of a lot of just the classic infrastructure we have around Detroit, this early 20th century, just beautiful pieces, whether it's different theaters around Belle Isle. And I'm curious, for you, as someone responsible for maintaining so much of this history, what do you feel when you walk through some of these spaces?
I have had so much joy in getting to spend every day on Belle Isle. And I think that my joy is just a reflection of everyone else that I see there that's getting to use the spaces and enjoy the spaces. So like I said, everyone has a memory on Belle Isle, and I'm really looking to hear those from folks and kind of collect them. I do a lot of, story collecting, as you guys do as storytellers on the radio, right? And so I feel like it's a beautiful thing to really celebrate, again, just such an icon of Detroit on Belle Isle, whether you have a memory at the conservatory, at the beach, a family reunion. There are so many different ways that people use the space, and we're just looking to lift those up and make even bigger investments.
Megan, my memory just this past summer with our producer of the Metro, Sam Corey, we played volleyball this summer at Belle Isle, and it was just one of those experiences I had never experienced going to Belle Isle and using it in that way. So just to have that space in the city of Detroit right off the water is absolutely incredible, and something that we, if you can, take advantage of, because it's right in our backyard. So before we move forward on to talk about the celebration, let's talk a little bit more about the Belle Isle Aquarium itself. Now, you said you had some fish that are in the basement, and they kind of rotate in and out. What fish are on display now? What will we see?
So one of the most exciting ones is we have an octopus right now. So kids love coming in for that. It's really fun to look at all the tentacles, and sometimes he's shy and will be in the corner, and then it comes out and kind of displays all 8 arms. So that's very exciting. We also have axolotls. We have 3 of them. And those are, kind of part of the cultural zeitgeist right now.
Yes.
People know a lot about axolotls, and a lot of kids are very informed. So they come, kind of beating down the door wanting to see these axolotls. So they are incredibly cute. They do look like they're smiling all the time.
They do.
So, but we have tons, like I said, of freshwater and saltwater fish, and the stories behind them all, such a wealth of information with the team that takes you through the space. So really would encourage everyone to come on out. I wanted to say too that the aquarium is open Thursdays in the summertime. A lot of folks don't realize that. So we are open from 10 to 4 Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then the rest of the year, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the same time. So please come out on Sunday, but also the rest of the year too. It's a great spot in the wintertime.
And before, I just wanted to build off of that, because in my brain, axolotls, I think about just the animals that kids tend to gravitate towards as we grow up and grow older, dinosaurs, wherever it may be. Yeah. So to have an axolotl and be able to display it to kids in a moment in, like you said, in history in our society where they're at the forefront. What does it feel like, once again, to see that excitement from the kids when you are able to bring something to them that they actually can relate to?
Yeah, I think it's just a perfect springboard for all sorts of learning opportunities. So you start with the axolotl, that gets them in the door, and then you see all the rest of the creatures and you start to understand how they work together. Then you learn about water systems and where we are as, the city of Detroit in this incredible Great Lakes region. And it kind of just broadens children's whole perspectives about not just science, but their place in the world as citizens. So it's been really exciting to see, families come out and children totally just light up and engage in new ways around that space.
I love it so much. Dr. Megan Elliot is the CEO of the Belle Isle Conservancy. Dr. Megan, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you so much for having me. See everyone Sunday.
Yes, this Sunday. It's the 120th anniversary of the Belle Isle Conservancy, or the Belle Isle Aquarium, the Belle Isle Conservancy. We'll partner with the City of Detroit's Office of Arts, Culture, and Entrepreneurship to host this family fun day. It's free from 11 to 4 p.m. It will have a bounce house, coloring books, crafts, story times, DJ, you name it, it'll all be there. And that's happening this Sunday. Once again, Dr. Megan, thank you for being here.
Thanks again.
Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. Coming up, Colin, what do we have coming up?
After a recent recent federal court ruling, Michigan's Redistricting Commission had to reconstruct its House and Senate maps. We'll talk about how those maps changed and what it meant for voters in the primary election with one of the commission's leaders.
Metro on 1019 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Colin Jackson. You probably know who your governor is. You might know who your congressperson. Maybe you know your mayor too. But do you know your state senator? The district lines for those offices help decide whether the representative who serves you looks like you or your neighbors, thinks like you and your neighbors, or even comes from your community. Late last year, a federal court sided with a group of Black Metro Detroit voters who felt the state's independent redistricting commission went too far in breaking up the city's legislative districts. That court ruled the commission illegally considered race too much in drawing its maps. The Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission recently finished redrawing several of Metro Detroit's state Senate and House districts. Those districts were approved by the court, and that new House map had its first electoral test during this month's primary elections. Here to discuss is Redistricting Commission Chair Anthony Eade. Anthony, welcome to the Metro.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's great to be back.
It's great having you. What was your initial reaction when you saw that you would be redrawing Michigan's state House and Senate maps?
So the initial reaction was one of surprise. It wasn't something the commission was expecting. We thought we would be done with the process after the 2-year process of creating the first batch of maps created by regular everyday citizens instead of by the legislature. Now, after we got done creating those maps, we got sued a whole bunch of times by a whole bunch of different people. I think there were actually 4 different lawsuits, and we won the first 3, so my expectation was we were going to win the final one, and it didn't go our way. But that's okay. After that, the commission was able to come together and get back to work, get our feet wet, and as you said, we just got done passing brand new state House and Senate maps that reconfigured the city of Detroit and the metro area, and I'm happy to say that the court approved the maps that the commission successfully adopted.
Yeah, that House map redraw came first, and this was your guys' first time kind of getting back to the drawing board since December 2021. There were a lot of questions about how the commission was going to go about it. What was your mindset during that initial redraw when you all got back to the swing of things?
I think my main goal was to make sure that whatever happened, at the end of the day, a map actually drawn by the commission would be the final map. There was a large fear that if the commission didn't get it right, that the map would instead be drawn by a special master who is a court-appointed expert who might not have as much expertise in Michigan, might not even live in Michigan, and might not have to fulfill all of the constitutional criteria that this redistricting commission has to follow. So I think the main goal of everyone on the team was just to make sure we got it right and make sure that at the end of the day, maps that were drawn by this independent group of citizens along with public help was the map that would be picked at the end of the day.
So with that in mind, though, it's not, I guess, so simple when you pass your original job, you think you did a good job, you say, job well done, you go home. Like you mentioned, you have been sued a bunch of times. You lost this one in court. What were some of the toughest parts about going back to that, though, understanding that there was this extra pressure to listen to communities, to make sure that it wasn't just you thought these were more fair, but that the communities thought they were more fair as well? What were some tough parts about that?
Well, the whole decision from the federal court in Kalamazoo centered around race predominating, essentially saying the commission looked at race too much. So the strategy we took was instead not to use race at all in drawing the districts until the maps were done and then undergoing a VRA analysis. I think during our first batch of drawing back in 2021, we really wanted to follow the VRA. And in doing so, we looked at race to make sure that we followed the VRA. But that was only one of the tools we used. Now, the court said we did it too much. So to solve that, we didn't look at it at all and underwent that VRA analysis after the maps were completed, completely drawn, instead of looking at race while they were being drawn. And it was tough because there's kind of this tension between the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protections Clause, and the VRA. It's like, well, how do you follow the VRA if you can't look at race? We came up with a new approach that instead looked at Democratic primary voters only in the primary election, whether there were more black than white primary voters, in order to determine if our districts would perform. And the court accepted that new type of analysis and seems to have worked out given the results of the last primary election.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission Chair Anthony Eid about the group's work and how it's been impacting, or how the work has impacted Metro Detroiters. You had mentioned the primary election there. The House map redraw, the new maps redrew 15 of the challenge. 15 districts. There were 7 that were challenged. 14 of those districts had incumbents who sought re-election, and they did win those primary elections. Each one of those incumbents that sought re-election won a primary election. 11 of those incumbents had primary challengers, but a lot of those races weren't close, meaning the people that were in office, for the most part, that were in office before the lawsuit still are likely to be in office. These are Democratic-leaning districts after the map redraw. So understanding that it's not your job to worry about who actually wins an election, what does that tell you, though, about how meaningful that the changes made to these maps were?
Well, I think the main thing it tells you is that the folks elected in 2022 under the first set of maps were, in fact, the black candidates of choice for the black community. I mean, they were reelected in 2024 under districts that were much more compact, much more placed in the city of Detroit, and once again had more black voters in the primary election than white voters. Meaning, to me, I'm not a political scientist, I'm not a legal expert, but it seems like the black community is voting these people in. And at the end of the day, it's not my decision as a commissioner, the person drawing the lines, to determine who the community actually votes for. That's the politician's job, to go out and actually get the votes from their constituents. But the fact that these candidates are winning in districts that are 75% black in some cases in House District 5, or, they're all majority black. So it tells you, who that the community is actually voting for.
I'm curious because right now we're in the middle of 2024. The commission first wrapped up its map drawing at the end of 2021. I'm guessing, if I could go out onto a limb here, that you didn't think you would still be here talking about redistricting in the middle of 2024. What can you talk about this plan to go into dormancy in late December that the commission is discussing?
Yeah, so back the first time around in 2021, we created a dormancy plan. I just want to point out, we're the first independent redistricting commission in Michigan's history, and we're only, I believe, the third truly independent one in the country. So we're kind of trying to, fly the plane as we build it in some ways. The Michigan Constitution says we're to stay in our roles. The actual term is a 10-year term until the next redistricting commission is selected, and that goes along with the 2030 U.S. Census. But we are to disband when lawsuits are over. So now finally, this final lawsuit is over. So we created a dormancy plan that essentially makes us go into a hibernation, if you will. And the only way we would come back into meeting is if there is a future lawsuit. Now, future lawsuits do happen. You do see them in redistricting cycles. I think in the old map that the legislature created in the 2010 cycle, there was a lawsuit in it was either 2016 or 2018 surrounding that map. But that's the only way we would come back and start meeting again, is if there's a future lawsuit. And right now we're trying to tie up our loose ends, get some final reports out, and then we'll be undertaking that dormancy status.
Michigan's Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission Chair Anthony Eid. Anthony, thank you for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. Today, there's a chance of rain with a high of 79 degrees. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with a chance of thunderstorms. Temperatures could reach 80 degrees. And Sunday, more rain and storms are expected with a high of 76 degrees. Don't forget, the WDET listener survey is back, and we want to hear from you. What do you think of the Metro? Believe me, we read every single comment. So share your thoughts, and you could win some neat WDET swag. It's quick, it's anonymous, and you'll be helping us serve you better. Take the survey now at WDET.org/survey. Colin, we do have more conversations coming up.
Yes, we do. Coming up, we'll hear about Detroit's new autonomous vehicle shuttles and how they're helping move residents around the city.
Stay right there. It's the Metro on 1019 WDET-FM. I am Tia Graham, and I am here with, for the final day on the Metro, Colin Jackson, reporter with the Michigan Public Radio Network. Colin, our next conversation is going to be talking about autonomous vehicles. How do you feel about getting in an autonomous vehicle?
I have a lot of strong feelings about autonomous vehicles. I have some concerns. I think they're so cool in theory, but at the same time, when I'm sitting in traffic, if I'm still having to pay for this car, I'd much rather just be on a train.
You're looking for convenience. You're hoping that the autonomous aspect makes it more convenient.
If it does, autonomous buses, if these are running all night,
Yeah.
I could get behind it. But.
Okay. Yeah. I'm behind it personally because it's something that I think it will really help those who are living with disabilities, those who really truly need these services to be helped. So I think it's great for those capabilities, those aspects of it. But for myself, I'm not sure either, Colin. I'm not sure, but we will learn more about it.
Exactly, because they're not as cool as flying cars seen in the Jetsons,
Nope.
but the future of autonomous vehicles are being put to the test on the streets of Detroit, so at least they're real. The 2 autonomous shuttle pilot programs launched this week in the city to not only test the technology, but also provide residents with new services. On Wednesday, our producer Jack Philbrandt climbed aboard, buckled up, and trusted a computer to take him from Lafayette Central Park to Whole Foods in Midtown while speaking with Detroit's Chief of Mobility Innovation, Tim Slusser, about how Detroit's Accessibili-D ride works. They began by talking about the differences between Detroit's 2 new autonomous vehicle shuttles, Accessibili-D and the Connect.
Right now, we're inside the Accessibili-D shuttle, right? This program is tailored to individuals that are older adults and individuals that identify as having a disability here in the city of Detroit, okay? And it is a point-to-point autonomous service that allows users to be picked up at any stop and be dropped off at any stop along the route, okay? So you can go direct from one point to another. You don't need to touch all the other points. The other program is the Connect shuttle, and that actually just launched on Tuesday, August 13th. And that one is 100% free and open to the public. You don't need to be part of the program like you do here for Accessibility. It is fully electric. Right now, it's actually operating in manual mode because what we decided to do was get the shuttle out there for the people to start riding, and it's going to be mapping the route while we're starting to provide this service to individuals. And then in about 2 months' time or so, we're going to flip the switch. It's going to be fully autonomous. We're going to do a big announcement about that. And everybody who has been riding the vehicle, my hope is they actually don't even experience a change. It's just like it was, the day before when it was being operated manually. And so we're just really excited to give these opportunities to Detroiters to experience this type of technology.
With this being Accessibility really for older folks, people with accessibility needs, what kind of thought went into that and making sure this shuttle is right to get them from point A to point B?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we had to make sure that we had a shuttle that was the right form factor, okay? A shuttle service that trained their drivers specifically in how to help older adults and people with mobility issues, how to treat them with respect, how to help them on and off the vehicle, just those little intangibles that make all the difference and make people feel comfortable. We had to design to the best of our ability with the current limitations of the technology, okay? The technology is not perfect yet. It's good enough to start to do pilot projects like this. It's good enough to start to put it in individuals' hands, the users of the service, so that they can experience it and provide feedback on what they like and don't like, right? But there's still some room for improvement, such as, in the future, we'd love to see a door-to-door service, right? So I come straight to where you are and take you right up to the front door where you want to go. We're not quite there yet, right? There's a number of limitations, that prevent us from getting there. But this gives us an opportunity to work directly with industry. And again, Accessibility here is powered by May Mobility, right? It gives an opportunity for May Mobility to actually put their vehicle through more of this type of testing and gain more of that real-world experience so that they can be at the cutting edge of how to solve those problems.
What would a future of autonomous vehicles look like in Detroit? How do you see them working within our current transit system?
Again, we really feel like this is a compliment because, we don't think that, number one, this is taking away from any jobs. This can actually help create safer operation of these types of vehicles and routes and all that sort of thing. It also gives a lot of opportunity to bring new jobs and experiences and skill sets to the city of Detroit, right? So when we worked with Maine Mobility, we said, hey, we want you to hire Detroiters, right? So that was something that they agreed to in their contract, to hire Detroiters to begin to operate these vehicles, to begin to maintain these vehicles, run the depot, all those types of jobs. So now Detroiters have opportunities to experience this industry that they can use to further their career opportunities and their career paths. We have the opportunity again for Detroiters who are riding these vehicles to provide direct feedback. What do I want this to look like for me and my city in the future? So I think that autonomy has the ability to have a role within our transit network, within private transportation, within something as small as robotic delivery. So we're seeing opportunities for this type of technology and autonomy to impact at multiple levels, multiple form factors of vehicles. And again, I think, really creating opportunities for Detroiters in the job market and creating opportunities for Detroit to improve its transportation infrastructure.
This is very new technology still, I think, and it may be a little far off, but do you see a future where we have a safety operator behind like an autonomous DDoT or smart vehicle?
Yeah, I think that's the right model for right now, right? The technology, again, is good enough to be put on the road with that safety operator that's well-trained in understanding how the vehicle's operating, how it's making decisions, and how to take over, right, to ensure the highest level of safety. I think that there's absolutely opportunities for that type of technology to go from the vehicle we're sitting in, which is essentially a size of a minivan, all the way up to full-size buses, right? There's a company in East Lansing right now that is operating such a bus on Michigan State University's campus. So I would love to see that type of technology coming down here to Detroit here in the not too distant future. So we're going to take the lessons we're learning from the pilots we're operating in my office, the Office of Mobility Innovation. We're going to share all of our lessons learned and our insights with the Department of Transportation here in the city of Detroit so that they can take that information and figure out how to plan for a future with these types of technologies. Because it's not just how do you make the technology work, it's also cost, it's also training. There's a lot of other factors that go into it. So that's what's really important about this experience for Detroit as well.
Accessibili-D, it's not a fixed route, is that correct?
Correct. So it is a point-to-point service. The entire territory that the vehicle could travel is fully mapped, right? So it can't go, again, just anywhere in the city. The entire route that's mapped, you can go between any 2 points directly or as direct as possible on that given set of routes, right? So the difference with a fixed route service is, if I have 15 stops, I go to all 15 of those stops before I come back to the next one, right? I drive kind of either in a back and forth pattern or I drive in a loop, right? This one, it can just determine what's the fastest route on the map that it has and go between those 2 points.
I think it's also really interesting to see somebody crossing the road, like maybe 20, 30 feet in front of us, wondering what the car's going to do, and then you do feel it put on the brakes and make that adjustment. Yeah, and the vehicle can have some jerkiness to it, right? So, but that's because the software and the communications and all that stuff are still learning, right? So again, it's nothing like the vehicle's going to hit the brakes and you're going to slam into the seat in front of you, but you'll see sometimes if a jaywalker comes out, because the computer's trying to make that decision in a split second, right? And the computer's going to say, okay, I'm not going to take a chance, right? I'm going to make sure that I'm hitting the brakes, slowing this vehicle down so that my occupants are safe and so that the person in the roadway is safe, right? Like we don't want anyone to get injured, whether it's someone in the vehicle or a pedestrian on the roadway. So it's designed for safety. As we get better with the sensors and the software and all the other sort of stuff, those things are going to smooth out over time, right? But when you experience that, it's because we are intentionally forcing the vehicle to make safer decisions. We're allowing the vehicle to assume as little risk as possible. We really want the vehicle to be, taking action to prevent any sort of injury or accident.
That was WDET's Jack Philbrandt speaking with Tim Slusser on Detroit's new autonomous Accessibili-D shuttle. People can sign up for the Accessibili-D shuttle on Detroit's Office of Mobility Innovation website. You can also find a link with information about it at WDET.org. Detroiters can also get an AV shuttle experience with the Connect. It's a free service nearly 11 miles long, stretching from Michigan Central to Pencil Lewis College on the city's east side.
Metro on 1019 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham here with Colin Jackson, reporter with the Michigan Public Radio Network. It's his last Friday with the Metro, last day with the Metro. Colin, it's been a great week.
It has been a great week. I think back to all the different things the conversations that we were able to have, whether it's crafts, whether it's culture, Afrofuturism, etc. And I know that WDET.org archives are going to be so vital for me, just reliving this, and you, if you want to listen to it too.
Exactly. It's wherever you find your podcast, Spotify, Apple Music. You like YouTube, it's there as well. And like Colin just said, WDET.org. You can go to the archive, listen to any episode that you want to listen to from the Metro. But also just want to remind those, the final WDET Comedy Showcase of the season is happening this Thursday, August 29th. What's So Funny About Detroit brings a new set of 6 of the city's funniest stand-up comedians to the stage. It's hosted by WDET's Ryan Patrick Hooper. Once again, happening Thursday, August 29th in the backyard of the iconic Cass Corridor Bar, the Old Miami. Tickets on sale right now at WDET.org/events. Colin, I hope to see you there.
I hope to see you there as well.
Yeah, coming up on the Metro, we'll talk with the Detroit documenters about what they learned from a Detroit Public Schools and Board of Police Commissioners meeting this week. Stay right there. Welcome back to the Metro on 1019 WDET FM. I am Tia Graham here with Colin Jackson, reporter with the Michigan Public Radio Network. And Colin, you do tend to work a little bit more in politics. I'm pretty sure that's your main focus.
Yes, exactly. Anything state government related, I say, is kind of my domain and what I cover. But really what I want to do is expand accessibility, though. I get to be behind the door sometimes because I have time to be there and I have the right credential. But there's really nothing special, Anyone can see it. Anyone can know. It's their government, too. Yeah. And exactly why we have this conversation on the Metro every single Friday. It's Friday. That means it's time for a roundup with Detroit documenters on the Metro. Detroit documenters cover government meetings around Southeast Michigan to help people stay informed and engage. Accessibility. This past week, documenters were at a Board of Police Commissioners meeting and a Detroit Public Schools meeting. To tell us more about what they learned is Detroit Documenters Coordinator Linnell Herden. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, actually.
Good to be back.
Yes, always love having you here. And then as well, we also have Colleen Sirocco. Welcome to the show, Colleen.
Hey, Tia. How's it going?
It's going really, really well. The way you just jumped in made me feel like you were in the studio with us. So next time we do have you back, Colleen, we would love to have you here.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm in Chicago right now for a conference, so I'm just calling in.
Oh, awesome. Bring back some popcorn. Okay, so this week we're chatting about those 2 meetings. We're going to start with you, Linnell, but there was a community meeting happening with the Detroit Police Commissioners. We're actually going to jump in and start with a comment that was made by Victoria Camille. Here she is.
This strategy should make us all stop and seriously think about our collective values. We are talking about property, a thing, an object. The value of property has superseded the value of human life.
Now, people at the meeting were speaking out about the death of Sherman Lee Butler. In July, a bailiff shot Butler during an eviction from his apartment, and that's what Victoria had to say. She's speaking at the community policing meeting. She's with the Coalition for Police Transparency and Accountability. Has there been more of a push recently from attendees of police commission meetings to make sure police officers are responding more quickly to families impacted by murder in the city?
So it does feel that way from this particular meeting, which is what I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
To be clear, this was last Thursday, the 8th. The police commissioners meet each Thursday. Their routine meetings are on at 3 p.m. But this was a community meeting. So it was an evening meeting at one of the precincts, really geared toward interacting with the community. So that's one thing that made it a little bit different. What we heard was the new board chair, Daryl Woods, responding immediately to each public commenter. It felt like he was concerned as well, and similarly outraged with them. So there was at that meeting an immediate response.
Yeah. And what was that response from Mr. Woods?
I remember he was like, this is completely unacceptable, and I promise that we are going to follow up right away. That's what he said several times. And then immediately the deputy chief of police that was there, I think Arnold Williams, also responded similarly, and they were taking people's names and numbers in the back of the room.
Wow. And, there are two different types of meetings. They both have standing meetings for the public to speak. So how does this differ, being a complete community-based meeting versus being one of the ones where the comment is pushed to the end?
Correct. So the routine public meetings that they have on a weekly basis are more for the Board of Police Commissioners to do their oversight job. And so they're checking in with the police, the chief of police, or sometimes the deputy chief, just to get the statistics. What's the rundown? What's the vibe of the police right now? The community meeting is geared toward the community. So in the first type of meeting, you do get to make public comment. You typically have like 2 minutes, and it's in and out. Whereas the community meeting is more geared toward the community, so the information is directed toward them, kind of made for them, as well as the interactions and the responses that are coming directly back to community members.
And usually are the police commissioners vocal and with communicating with the public? Are they going, having actual open conversations?
No.
Okay.
Right. So usually you can kind of put your comment on the record. They may or may not get back to you. They'll probably get back to you written. They may respond on the record, but they don't generally.
All righty then. And Linnell, just sticking with you here because we do have another clip. Also in attendance was Yvonne Jones with the Coalition for Police Transparency and Accountability, who spoke at the meeting about the cultural change she thinks needs to take place at the Detroit Police Department.
There's no respect for the people. The concern is not real. The policies are there. But what about how do we change this culture?
Yeah, so just hearing that piece as well, what were critiques about Detroit's police culture specifically? What did you hear from people and what did they want to change?
So what we heard during that meeting, first it started out with some statistics that let us know that there were a lot of police complaints, citizen complaints, a lot of them regarding procedure, whether or not you have your body cam on. But what we heard directly from people at the meeting were mother after mother who were seeking some type of ending closure, follow-up to some cases. They had murder investigations that were still pending, one since 2021. And that woman wasn't able to get any answers. Another mother was speaking about having some incorrect identifying characteristics and looking for her missing son. And so, those were the comments where Chair Woods was responding right away.
Yeah, and you just talked about it. You hinted on it a little bit. Right now, if you're just tuning in, we're chatting with Linnell Hurden, a coordinator with the Detroit Documenters, and Colleen Sirico, a Detroiter in a documentary. We're discussing what happened at the latest Detroit Public Schools meeting, as well as a Detroit Police Commissioners meeting. Now, Linnell, public comments don't always show up in the meetings. You just talked about that a little bit. Why do you choose to include public comments, and what do we learn from comments that we might not see in the meetings? the meeting minutes, excuse me.
Yeah, the meeting minutes, if you even do see the meeting minutes, right? Like it might be months before they make those public. And so we definitely focus on what the community has to say. That's the voice that seems to be missing in these meetings. What minutes give you is kind of like a rundown of the meeting, what happened by category, and what they approved or didn't approve, which is important information to have for sure. But we want to know what people are concerned about, what they're talking about, what they agree with, what they don't agree with. And so that's why we concentrate on public comment.
Which is really, really great, something to have a record of so you can see what your residents, your peers, your neighbors are talking about and what they're concerned about. Colleen, we're bringing you into the conversation. You were at the school board meeting, which is interesting on its own. We have an election year that's happening. So if you could just give us a brief overview of what happened at this particular school board meeting.
Yeah, definitely. So this was this past Tuesday, and they have community meetings around 5:30 every other Tuesday. And they usually have them at a school. During the school year, they have students usually do performances like for the national anthem. So it's really cool, and it brings the community together. And usually the first half is really like rote. It's like the superintendent, the financial CEO or CFO reading like statistics about, you know, how people are doing on their standardized tests. It's really kind of basic. And then, like we were just talking about, the public comment really brings out what's really going on, and which is often really different than what's in the first half. And this meeting was super interesting in particular because there was like an organized group that was giving each board member a review and a grade based on their performance in past board meetings. And it was really holding them accountable, and they were all failing except for one. Sherry Gay Yogo was the only one that didn't fail, like basically getting an F. A lot of the comments from a survey that this group did were that people are really disengaged. They were showing up late. They were on their phones during meetings. And each commenter has 3 minutes. And I think there were about 5 or 6 people in this group that were all calling in and giving these reviews. So it was a lot of time for them to sit there and listen to this bad, critiques on their presence in the meetings. And after that, the second half of the meeting is when they usually vote on, whatever agenda items they have that day. Mm-hmm. And every single person on the board said something for the first time. And I've covered like 5 or 6 of their meetings. And I realized I didn't even know what their voices sounded like to give them credit for what they were saying, which is kind of crazy.
Yes. 5 meetings and you hadn't heard from some of those, members. So if we can, I'm going to play this clip really quickly. We're going to have about 30 seconds to a minute to get out of it. But a few weeks back on the Metro, we spoke with Mario Moro, a political analyst and a former DPCSD administrator. Talked a little bit about the board agreeing on many things, but Moro spoke about how the dynamic could shift after the November election.
When there's change and when there's turnover and you have 3 new members coming on, it could very well turn to a 4-3 vote, which could go either way if someone was on the fence. Dr. Vitti has to have a great deal of faith in the board and have a working relationship with the board because his priorities and his agenda could very well be in reverse.
So we got about 30 seconds, Colleen, maybe even 15 here, but just to talk a little bit about the sentiment that you were hearing there from the community members. I know that survey wasn't an official survey, but a few folks have been talking about that board there. So if you could just give us a little bit, 15 seconds about what was going on at the board.
Yeah, just like I said, a lot of disengagement. But after the group came up, they basically changed their tune, and everyone was really, putting their 2 cents in. And it was just a totally different feeling. Like they were really had like a fire lit under them from that organized group.
Yes. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on the Metro today. We just spoke with the coordinator with the Detroit Documenters, Linnell Herden, and Colleen Surico, a Detroiter and a documenter as well. Thank you both so much for being here and letting us know what's going on with Detroit Documenters and our board meetings in Detroit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
That's the Metro for Friday, August 16th. You can listen to recent episodes online at WDET.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. Colin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Thanks for listening. Colin, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.